This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. Plans to replace the hospital on St. Thomas take a big step forward after FEMA approves the replacement of the Roy Lester Schneider Hospital. After several years of debate and reviews, the VI Office of Disaster Recovery has received a final decision from FEMA approving the full replacement of the hospital. FEMA required extensive amounts of documentation in order to accept the territory's position that the hospital received sufficient damage from the 2017 hurricanes to warrant full replacement. So the next step is for both parties to agree on a total cost to rebuild. FEMA will collaborate with the Territorial Hospital Redevelopment Team to determine the reconstruction cost, and once a cost is agreed upon, funds will be obligated to the territory, opening the door for the construction of a new, modernized, state-of-the-art facility. This bodes well for Albert Bryan administration's goal of improving the territory's healthcare system. The design will take about 1 year, and once that design work is completed, the project will be put out to bid. There's now new guidelines on COVID-19 from the CDC, easing recommendations on quarantines, testing, and screening in schools. One official saying COVID is here to stay.
The new guidelines could impact how millions of Americans quarantine, when they should get tested for COVID, and what students nationwide should expect when they return to the classroom. It comes as students in the VI end their first week of a new school year, and just days before nearly 50 million other children head back to school. The CDC is easing and streamlining its guidance. In a major shift, the Centers for Disease Control now no longer recommending quarantine even after exposure, and no ongoing screening in K through 12 schools, though exposed students who have symptoms should still test. The agency also releasing specifics on when indoor masking should be implemented.
We're like, okay, it's starting to go back to a little bit of normal, but we still want to take the precautions.
With the new guidance applying to all children regardless of vaccination status, the vast majority of kids under 12 remain unvaccinated. Dropping protective measures, says Dr. Ellie Murray, could be a major mistake.
COVID is just continuously throwing us wild cards. Every single surge we've had so far, right now with so much COVID around, taking away those precautions is just going to lead to more transmission.
The new school guidelines mirror new guidance for all Americans, including those returning to the office. Easing quarantine, testing, and dropping any social distancing guidelines should help Americans transition back to a life as it used to be.
1, 2, 3, poke. All done, sweetheart.
An evolving pandemic and a changing approach to our daily lives.
All right, so a couple of the big takeaways here. The CDC is no longer recommending people stay at least 6 feet away from each other, and there's no need to quarantine if you're exposed but not infected with the virus. But the guidance does keep some measures the same. It encourages testing for people with symptoms and their close contacts. It also says people who test positive should stay home for 5 days and wear a mask around other people for 10 days. It also continues to recommend that people wear a mask indoors, specifically in high-risk communities. Meantime, U.S. monkeypox cases have doubled in less than 2 weeks. The CDC says more than 10,000 people had the virus as of Wednesday afternoon. The country had 5,000 cases less than 2 weeks ago, and the first U.S. case was reported less than 3 months ago. Right now, Wyoming is the only state, as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands, which have not reported any cases. New York has the most, followed by California and Florida. And again, at last check, according to the VI Department of Health, no monkeypox cases have been confirmed in the USVI. Slight panic for some low-income elderly Virgin Islanders when they received a letter saying their Meals on Wheels benefits would soon come to an end. But the VI Department of Human Services says that is not happening. DHS sent a letter dated July 20th and said it was mailed to St. Thomas clients of the Senior Community Nutrition Program, better known as Meals on Wheels. The letter indicated a benefit cutoff date of August 31st, 2022. But the Virgin Islands DHS is advising that those letters were sent in error. The continued mission of the Meals on Wheels program is to serve healthy, nutritious, and balanced meals for the most vulnerable seniors in the VI community. So the DHS says its clients should rest assured their meals will continue until their next certification period, where their eligibility will be reassessed. The DHS commissioner sincerely apologized for any undue alarm the letter may have caused and ensures their meals will continue. And a bit of a relief for those driving those meals around town. The nationwide average price of gas dipped below $4 a gallon Thursday for the first time in several months. According to AAA, the national average for the price of gas now sits at $3.99. That's a 15-cent difference from a week ago and a 68-cent difference over the last month. The price of gas also impacts inflation numbers. On Wednesday, better than expected inflation numbers came out, showing the rate is still high, but that inflation is slowing. Experts say the falling price of gas is due to a combination of factors, including a drop in demand and releases from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. However, the price of gas could go back up if demand rises or if natural disasters strike, like hurricanes, and that would prevent offshore drilling and disrupt supply. Gas prices are still, though, significantly higher from this time last year, but at least national average below $4 a gallon now. Beach erosion in nearby Puerto Rico is destroying the island at an alarming rate, and that led the Caribbean Islands Climate Change Council to sound the alarm with its latest assessment. And this comes as the island has already had to deal with rising sea levels, hurricanes, and flooding. Leila Santiago reports.
Off the tropical waters of Puerto Rico.
Do you see this as an emergency?
This is an emergency. Absolutely.
Ernesto Diaz of the Puerto Rico Climate Change Council warns beach erosion is destroying the island of Enchantment at an alarming rate. In fact, the very ground we walked on here was gone the next day.
This was all connected. We walked from here to over here with sand underneath our feet, and coastal erosion has taken it away, leaving this house very vulnerable on the beach. And it makes the point that the people of Puerto Rico need something done now.
The local government has deemed this neighborhood an emergency zone for 25 homes because of coastal erosion. It's the latest crisis on an island caught in the crosshairs of climate change. Destructive hurricanes, sea level rise, flooding, extreme heat, the results of a planet that is warming.
Small islands like Puerto Rico do not emit much of the greenhouse gases that are causing the problem, but we're the first ones that feel the impacts.
Climate change, what does that mean to you?
Well, we believe it because we've seen it.
Edwin Cotto lives further east in Loíza, a town where roughly half of the population lives in poverty, according to the U.S. Census. He's watched the beaches shrink, the sidewalks crumble in front of the home he's lived in for 60 years because of the coastal erosion.
One storm, it will wipe this road out.
Down the street, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers recently built this rock barrier designed to prevent erosion. But Cotto will not benefit from that protection since his house falls just outside the project's boundaries.
So you've had politicians, decision makers, government officials come here, and you've shown them all of this. Do you feel
we all have shown them.
Do you feel like they're listening?
Like I said, they tell you that they're listening. They sound really, really nice. They say a lot of stuff, but don't come up with nothing.
I would say to him that after these conversations, I'm going back to Washington, D.C., and my staff will be following up in a matter of weeks.
That's the head of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA Administrator Michael Regan. He visited Puerto Rico as part of his Journey to Justice tour, an effort to shed light on environmental issues that disproportionately affect people in marginalized communities.
I know that these people have faced systemic racism. I know that these people have faced environmental injustice, and I know that we have to do something about it.
Part of the solution, he says, resources from the bipartisan infrastructure law, more than $50 billion in funding that can tackle issues like flooding. But on the island repeatedly battered by climate change, an island where the government said more than half of its beaches are experiencing erosion, even before Hurricane Maria, skepticism remains.
We want to hear specific. When are you going to do something? When? We don't even care what. When you're going to start doing something, because anything they do is better than nothing.
According to a recent survey from the Yale program on climate change communication, 47% of Americans believe global warming will end up affecting them personally.